We have seen Dennis Allen be a head coach in the NFL for quite some time now, and the time has come. It is time for Dennis Allen to be fired. We saw him with the Raiders, and we're now seeing it with the New Orleans Saints. It's the same problems every single year. This team has just lost 3 games in a row. Now, every single game has been relatively close, but that's been the story with the Saints since he has become the head coach and when he was the head coach with the Raiders. I have said this in the past. It doesn't matter about who was on the field. Dennis Allen always finds a way to get out coached. The first 2 games of this season, you have to let it go. That is not who the New Orleans Saints are on a week-to-week basis. They're not going to go out there and score 40-plus points every single week or even 30-plus points every single week. They beat a bad Carolina Panthers team that cannot stop a nosebleed right now on the defensive end. And they had a quarterback that cannot put the ball into an ocean. You also look at the situation against the Dallas Cowboys. They went against a team that could not stop the run. They're still finding their footing. And they also went against the Dallas Cowboys team that could not run the football. So it was easy to beat up on that Cowboys team. In order for the Saints to be successful with Dennis Allen as the head coach, Derek Carr needs to be elite. And we know what Derek Carr is at this stage of his career. Derek Carr is not an elite quarterback, and he never will be an elite quarterback. And for the New Orleans Saints fans that are saying, hey, let's go out there and get Davante Adams, that is easier said than done. The cap situation is hell with this team. And it's been like this for the last 5 to 6 years. They continue to kick the can down the road. And they were able to sign players and re-sign players. But the problem is this. When a big-time free agent comes up and a guy wants to come in and play, you look at the contract situation. In order for them to bring in Davante Adams, they're going to have to move off of some pieces on the defensive end. And the Raiders, they don't want defensive pieces. They may want a starting wide receiver, but they may ask for Chris Olave. And there is no way in hell, if the New Orleans Saints are smart, that you would trade Chris Olave, who is in his early 20s, for Davante Adams in his 30s. It's not going to happen. The money just doesn't make sense right now, unfortunately. It would be a very good fit, but even if you brought Davante Adams in, it's not going to change much. Davante Adams can't call timeouts. Davante Adams can't go out there and make key adjustments. When this team went against the Kansas City Chiefs, what did they do for the majority of the game? They were in zone coverage. When the Saints are one of the best man-to-man cover teams in the NFL. It's been this way the last 2 to 3 years since Dennis Allen has been the head coach. So why are you running man? Why aren't you running man coverage against Patrick Mahomes? He's one of the best quarterbacks against zone coverage. And when you get in red zone situations, that's when you want to run man. And I understand Paulson Adebo right now, he is dealing with a lot of problems with penalties. He had a huge penalty last night against the Kansas City Chiefs. He had a major penalty against the Atlanta Falcons that pushed him in field goal range. He's struggling. But I can tell you this right now. He's not a terrible cornerback. He's been very reliable in the past. The problem is this. Dennis Allen continues to put him on the fastest wide receiver for the opposing team. It's going to happen. He's always struggled with faster wide receivers, even dating back to college. But when he was in college, at least his head coach and defensive coordinator would put him on the opposite wide receiver. He will be very good against receivers like DK Metcalf because they're not as twitchy. He'll be very good against wide receivers like Brandon Ayuk. But when you put him on someone like a Xavier Worthy, a Tyreek Hill, or Darnell Mooney, those guys are smaller and they're twitchier in the hips. He doesn't have the hip speed to keep up with them. Marshawn Lattimore does. And they were letting up so many big plays of Travis Kelce last night and Juju Smith-Schuster. No halftime adjustments. 0. The Chiefs went out there. They made adjustments. Look at how Andy Reid coached that game last night. They had no Hollywood Brown. They had no Rashee Rice. They have no Isaiah Pacheco, but yet they did not miss a beat. And I understand Patrick Mahomes threw an interception. Juju Smith-Schuster dropped the ball. Very good play by the defender. And Saunders came down with a 40-yard interception. And they were able to go out there and score on that drive with Derek Carr getting the football to Foster Monroe, who was a very good receiving tight end in the red zone. But the problem is this. The defense can't finish games. And part of that is because they're on the field too much. And also because of this, they don't make key adjustments. It makes 0 sense to run zone coverage. When you were successful early in the season against the Cowboys, against the Panthers, and also against the Philadelphia Eagles, what did they run? Man coverage. Because you have Marshawn Lattimore, Paulson Adebo. You also have Kool-Aid McKinstry as well. And by the way, if Paulson Adebo is out there struggling against fast wide receivers and you don't want Marshawn Lattimore to guard a guy like Xavier Worthy, just put in Kool-Aid McKinstry and let him hold it down. Kool-Aid McKinstry is a very good player. That's why you drafted him in the first place. It's not only just Dennis Allen and the dumb play calling from last night and over the last couple of years. It's also this. They don't have help in the backfield with Alvin Kamara. The run game was non-existent last night, but we know that this offensive line is going to be very inconsistent. They're missing Eric McCoy. They're missing Ryan Ramczyk at the tackle position. And yes, he's going to be out for this entire season. So it's really a moot point to talk about him, but you know the offensive line was going to be inconsistent because a lot of the guys on the offensive line, they're banged up, they're beat up, they're not supposed to be in the first place. But when you look at what happened in the backfield, they only have Alvin Kamara. They brought in Jamal Williams a year ago. Last season, he couldn't stay healthy. So they wanted to bring him back. Kendre Miller was supposed to come in and be the number 2 alongside Alvin Kamara. Well, he got injured. He hasn't been able to play. He's dealing with a hamstring injury. So you didn't go into free agency and want to bring in another guy and just let Jamal Williams go? Because let's be honest here, Jamal Williams is a power back. He's going to slow the game down. They could not find carries for him in the backfield. He only had 2 carries against the Kansas City Chiefs. So what did they do? They put the man on kick return. One of the slower players on the roster at a skill position, they put him on kick return. Fired the special teams coordinator as well. Why is Rashid Shaheed not on kick and punt return at all times? That's where Rashid Shaheed got his starting spot at, as being a return man. And he's been a very good wide receiver, by the way, one of the best deep threats in the NFL. He's up there with Devontae Adams and also with Tyreek Hill in terms of catching the football deep down the field. A phenomenal target with that track speed. But who idea was it to put Jamal Williams on kick return? They deserve to be fired as well. That was a stupid decision. That's when I knew the game was over with. When I saw him on the field, I knew it was over with for the Saints. They were done for. The lack of adjustments and the mismanagement with timeouts as well. And I will also say this. They should go out there and they should fire Dennis Allen and promote Clint Kubiak to being the interim head coach. There is something there with Clint Kubiak. The offense has not looked the same in the last 3 games, but it's not all on him. Because Derek Carr, like I mentioned before, he will always go out there and put up good to solid numbers. He will always do that. He will never go out there and throw 4 interceptions in a game. But I will say this about Derek Carr. He's not a top-end quarterback. I do believe with better quarterback play, they can get over the hump even more. But first, you have to get rid of Dennis Allen. And I'm not saying that Derek Carr is a bad quarterback. Another reason why Dennis Allen and Mickey Loomis, they both need to go. You had Andy Dalton and Jameis Winston your first season. Jameis Winston went out with a back injury. Some Saints fans, they hate Jameis Winston. He showed a lot of promise with Sean Payton, not so much with Pete Carmichael and Dennis Allen. Dennis Allen had Pete Carmichael calling plays for multiple seasons. It didn't work out. That's who he wanted. He brings in Derek Carr. So far, that hasn't worked out. That's the guy that he wanted. But the ultimate reason to why Mickey Loomis should be fired, the mismanagement with just extending veterans that aren't good anymore. And Cameron Jordan fits that category. Cameron Jordan has not been a consistent pass rusher in 3 seasons now. He has been very bad in terms of pushing the pocket and going after the quarterback. He's a good run stopper, but you can find those guys cheap in free agency. The pass rush is too inconsistent as well with this defense. We've seen this over the last 3 weeks. If it's not Carl Granderson or Brian Bresee, they're not touching the quarterback. Chase Young, I've mentioned this in the past, and I got hate for it. Chase Young is a player, very inconsistent. 1 week, he looks good. The next 3 weeks, he disappears. Yes, he had a sack against the Kansas City Chiefs, but before that, he only had a half a sack. And the pressure rate is not high with him. The motor is either up or it's down. He's too inconsistent. And he's always dealing with injuries. That's why the Washington Commanders moved off him. And that's why the San Francisco 49ers, they put their hands up and they say, we're done with this kid. He can go elsewhere. Not a bad player, but very inconsistent. Carl Granderson led the team in sacks last season. You also have Brian Bresee, has been a phenomenal defensive tackle. But that Cameron Jordan contract, they extended him for 3 years. And the man only had 2.5 sacks. Ridiculous. Ridiculous. It makes zero sense to how bad this team has been in terms of going out there and paying these older veterans and keeping them around. And it's not like they just paid Cameron Jordan chunk change. They paid him a lot of money. DeMario Davis is a very good linebacker. He's very good. And I will also say this as well. If you're one of those Saints fans that are coming on my channel or going out there elsewhere and saying, hey, they're dealing with so many injuries, give Dennis Allen time. You're part of the problem. You're worse than ownership because you continue to make excuses. This man was a terrible head coach of the Raiders. Not much is going to change. When they go against elite level teams, they always get stomped on every single time. It's the same song and dance. And now this is Dennis Allen's. This is his ultimate team. You have Chris Olave. And also this as well. I really like Clint Kubiak. It was so many situations last night that makes you want to pull your hair out because Chris Olave only had 2 catches for 10 yards. The man had 1 target at halftime. 1 target. That's your number 1 wide receiver. I know that Rashid Shaheed, he gets all the flashy plays. He runs deep down the field. He does all those things. I understand that. You have Chris Olave, who is a do-it-all threat, and you can only get him 2 catches in a game. You can't even give him an end-around play. Just put the football in his hands. Give him a screen pass. Do something. And then when you wonder why when receivers are in the fourth quarter, they're dropping passes, they haven't had momentum. They haven't had consistency catching the football just yet. They're cold. Do some screen passes to him. Instead of doing those screen passes with Alvin Kamara, give Chris Olave the opportunity to just field the ball. Just let him catch the football. Give Derek Carr the opportunity to just run some slants across the middle of the field. I will also say this as well. I've been very tough on Derek Carr. Mason Tippmann, that is a hard catch to make. I understand that. If you never played football before, you may not understand that. I never played at the highest level. Not trying to say that I have. It is hard to catch that football, but that was a very catchable ball. And I'm talking about the play that Derek Carr got blitzed on, delivers a complete dot with pressure all in his face. It's an all-out blitz by Steve Spagnuolo, the defensive coordinator for the Chiefs. He throws it in the air. Mason, you got to come down with it. And I do understand when you bend back like that, you do black out for a second. But he had the opportunity to secure the ball. If he catches that football on 4th and 8, maybe they go down there. Maybe they get a touchdown. Maybe they get a field goal. They would have been in a better situation. And that completely changes the game. That's not on Derek Carr. And I'm not trying to say bench Derek Carr. He's terrible. This hasn't been Derek Carr's fault. This has been Dennis Allen's fault. The same people say that about Jameis Winston. He's terrible. Same people say that about Andy Dalton. He's terrible. Every single quarterback that Dennis Allen has is just terrible. No, he's just a terrible coach. That's the problem. I don't see the Saints going far because of the injuries, but this coaching staff is their biggest problem. And Mickey Loomis is a huge problem as well by extending a guy like Cameron Jordan. I am still in shock that they had Jamal Williams on special teams. Makes 0 sense. I just want to make sure of this as well. In terms of when they go out there and possibly start Spencer Rattler. Spencer Rattler should not see the field unless this team is just out of playoff contention 100%. Because you may ruin the kid. Because Derek Carr is not playing terrible. When Derek Carr went out with that oblique injury, I thought for sure that Spencer Rattler was going to come into the game. They put Jake in the game because Dennis Allen believes in his veteranship. For the ones that don't know, Jake Haener had 1 pass attempt entering the game against the Kansas City Chiefs. And Spencer Rattler had a phenomenal preseason. Jake Haener did not look like that in the preseason. He's never looked as good in the preseason as Spencer Rattler did. And I'm not saying that right now Spencer Rattler is just going to go out there and make them have a comeback against the Chiefs. But why not give the kids some live game reps? The game was over with anyway. If he goes out there, he throws an interception or 2, okay, fine, it's a learning curve. He's not going to be the starter anyway. But to say that you believe in Jake because his veteranship, come on, Dennis Allen. Come on, that doesn't make sense at all. It doesn't. And the fact that he's been around for this long in the NFL also has me scratching my head. The reason why the Saints promoted this man to be the head coach is because he was a cheap option after Sean Payton. Because they didn't want to go out there and pay for another coach and bring them in and upgrade the salary. Let's just be real about it. That's what it was. Dennis Allen was a cheap version because he's the former defensive coordinator with the Saints. It was easier to elevate and promote within. So they let him be the head coach. The Saints really did not learn from the first go around with Dennis Allen and Derek Carr when they were with the Raiders. Well, they're about to learn now. Hopefully Spencer Rattler can be their guy long term. I don't see them making a trade for Devontae Adams because the cap situation, if they do, they'll have to go out there and move some players around. Or maybe you make the Raiders still pay 60 to 70% of the cap space of Devontae Adams' salary. But at the end of the day, even if they bring Devontae Adams in, this team is not going to go to the NFL playoffs. It's too much competition in this division. They've already lost to the Falcons. They face the Tampa Bay Buccaneers this upcoming week. And the Saints, they will always do this. Dennis Allen will win some games. He'll go on a 4 to 5 game streak when they already have lost 7 to 8 games on the season. So he'll go out there and look very good towards the end of the season and say, you know what, my job is safe if we were just healthier. It's been the same song and dance the last 2 to 3 years with this guy. And the Saints continue to fool themselves. I feel bad for the fans. I don't feel bad for the ownership because they let this happen. They knew what was going to happen. They just don't care because Dennis Allen's getting paid pennies on the dollar. Go out there and hire a real NFL head coach and get you a real general manager as well. If Spencer Rattler is the guy, that's even better because now you're putting that kid into a situation with Rashid Shaheed and Chris Olave. And Alvin Kamara's doing the best that he can. The man's playing with broken ribs last week. And he has been the only consistent player in terms of going out there and giving it his all, besides Rashid Shaheed, on a consistent basis on the offensive end. But let me know in the comment section below, how do you guys feel about the New Orleans Saints in this situation with Dennis Allen? Should they let him go or should he be the head coach for the rest of the season? If you're new to the channel, hit the subscribe button. If you like the video, hit the like button. Most importantly, we want each and every last one of you guys stay safe, stay positive. Thanks for watching the video, guys. God bless. Peace.